This is Standing Watch. And now, Evangelist Norbert Link.
Greetings everyone and welcome back to our Standing Watch program. Before I address a very haunting vision which George Washington allegedly had, I like to begin with the visit of the Saudi Arabian Crown Prince in Washington with Mr. Trump, because, as I will show you, this visit has a lot of relevance towards what I'm going to talk about in a moment. So let me start reading from an article by ABC News dated November 18. I could have used any article from any paper. They pretty much say all the same thing. It says, President Donald Trump on Tuesday angrily defended Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman during his first trip to the United States in 7 years, saying that what the Saudi royal has done is incredible in terms of human rights, and dismissed questions about journalist Jamal Khashoggi's murder, a Washington Post columnist and Saudi critic, by Saudi agents in Istanbul, causing global outrage. Trump interjected when the prince was asked about Khashoggi's murder. "You're mentioning somebody that was extremely controversial," referring to Khashoggi. "A lot of people didn't like that gentleman, and whether you like him or didn't like him, things happen, but he, the prince, had nothing to do with it. He knew nothing about it, and so we can leave it at that," he said. In 2021, a report from U.S. intelligence community, and this was Trump's U.S. intelligence community, found via says that Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman approved an operation in Istanbul, Turkey, to capture or kill Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi. And then the article goes on to say that the president touted the business deals and economic cooperation, including a $1 trillion investment from Saudi Arabia in the United States. Trump confirmed that he had also agreed to sell F-35s to Saudi Arabia as part of a weapons deal, which experts say would mark the first time those fighters have been sold to an Arab military. The sale of advanced F-35 fighter jets to the Saudi kingdom is likely to cause consternation in Israel. And then The Guardian added on November 18, the agreement will be similar to the one the US has with Israel, which is significant, as until now Israel has been the only country in the Middle East to have the jets. The move has the potential to alter the military balance in the region. MBS made clear, the Saudi Arabian Crown Prince, that normalization with Israel, i.e. Saudi Arabia joining the Abraham Accords, could not happen without first securing a clear path towards a two-state solution, something which Netanyahu absolutely rejects. We also are told that Trump secured an agreement for Saudi Arabia to buy nearly 300 American military tanks, and Trump will also designate Saudi Arabia as a major non-NATO ally, whatever that means. Now let me say that in the light of biblical prophecy, these developments are plainly counterproductive and pose great dangers for Israel, but also for the United States. This cozy friendship between America and Saudi Arabia will not last. There is a psalm in chapter 83, verses 1 to 8, talking about a confederacy, a conspiracy, if you please, of Arab and other Middle Eastern and African nations against Israel. And it says, in verse 4, they have said, "Come, and let us cut them off from being a nation," talking about Israel, "that the name of Israel may be remembered no more." And it says in verse 5 that they are forming a confederacy, and then the different nations are listed: Edom, which is today's Turkey, the Ishmaelites, which is Saudi Arabia, and then other nations are listed: And then it says in verse 8, and Assyria also has joined with them, and they have helped the children of Lot, which would be Jordan. Now you need to know, of course, what these nations are, where they are to be found. We have prepared a free booklet, Middle Eastern and African Nations in Bible Prophecy. And this booklet tells you who those nations are, where they can be found, and also what the story is with Assyria. You need to know who Assyria is today, and I'm not talking about a small little region over there in the Middle East. And that brings me right to the vision of George Washington. Now, many may not have heard about this, but the Daily Mail wrote on November 15, in the winter of 1777, legend goes that George Washington received a vision that has haunted America for over 2 centuries. An angelic figure appeared to him at Valley Forge, prophesying 3 great trials the young nation would face. The first 2 have been fulfilled: the Revolution that birthed the country, and the Civil War that nearly tore it apart. But the third prophecy spoke of something yet to come. Hordes of armed men carried over the sea to invade America. Washington's third vision includes a threat of war in a future time that would be so great, with powers from the east crossing the sea. Now, whether this was actually an accurate description of the vision which Washington allegedly had or not, what is being said here is absolutely true, because the Bible again tells us that America will be indeed invaded by a great power in the Eastern Hemisphere. We're talking about the last European revival of the ancient Roman Empire, which is being led by Germany. We have prepared a free booklet on that one too, the 10 European revivals of the ancient Roman Empire. And this brings me to the question of Assyria. Now, many people don't know where Assyria can be found today, but it can be found today in the descendants of ancient Assyria in Germany, and also to a certain extent in Austria. And when you talk about the 10 revivals of the ancient Roman Empire, which had absorbed all prior empires, including the Babylonian Assyrian Empire, and then the Greco-Macedonian Empire, and of course the Medo-Persian Empire, you will find that 9 of the 10 revivals of the ancient Roman Empire in Europe were done under Assyrian leadership, German leadership, Austrian leadership. Think of Charlemagne, think of Otto the Great, think of Charles V, think of Hitler. Hitler had quite an admiration for the ancient Assyrians. They even say that the famous swastika was adopted from the Assyrians. And we also read in the Bible that the last revival is going to be done under the beast. The beast, a very charismatic, powerful military leader. He's also called the king of Assyria in the Bible. So you see how this ties together, and now we need to look at Germany. That's why it's so important to observe what is happening in Germany today. And there's a lot which can be said about the German desire to again get involved in war. Let me read to you from an article by the Austrian magazine Report 24, dated November 14. It says, agreement on conscription. Those who are not lured in will be forced. The governing coalition has agreed on a conscription model. They emphasize voluntariness by enticing recruits with payments of 2,600 euros gross per month and the prospect of additional subsidies. However, if the cannon fodder isn't willing, force will be used. If the need isn't met by volunteers, a random selection process will be activated. With financial incentives and tiered recruitment processes, young people are being lured into the Bundeswehr, the German armed forces. Those who don't take the bait are forced in step by step. The democratic fig leaf serves only to stifle criticism. The coalition of the CDU, CSU and SPD has buried its internal squabble and proudly presents a model that systematically drives young people into the clutches of the Bundeswehr. Behind the reform lurks the massive expansion of the armed forces to 260,000 active soldiers, supplemented by 200,000 reservists. These figures expose the hypocrisy. Instead of peace policy, Berlin submits to foreign plans that degrade young people to cannon fodder, and now listen carefully, while politicians sit safely enthroned in their offices. And that's always the crux of the matter. Here politicians are advocating war, but they are sitting safely enthroned in their offices. While Defense Minister Pistorius prevented the so-called double lottery system of the Union, which would have determined conscription and then enlistment by lottery, the essence remains a watered-down form of coercion that turns voluntary service into a lie and lures young people into a trap. Very important, very accurate statements. And also, we find that Germany in particular is preparing for war. They are most certainly thinking in terms of going to war. Focus, a German paper, wrote on November 14. The German economy is arming itself for war. It's becoming clear. Companies are working on action plans for the moment. Normal operations break down. The term war doesn't appear officially everywhere, but the logic is evident. The turning point, Zeitenwende, is here. And it doesn't just affect the arms industry, but ordinary factories. An entire economic landscape is rearming, following the directives of those in charge, those who sit safely in their offices. And so we see that Europe is expecting and preparing for war, and it will come. And Europe will invade and conquer the United States under German leadership. And so we see that George Washington's haunting vision will come true after all. Thanks very much for listening. This is Norbert Link for the Standing Watch program.
Standing Watch is a presentation by The Church of the Eternal God, P.O. Box 270519, San Diego, California 92198. More information is also available at our website, eternalgod.org.